Hello, welcome to Live Rite Tonight. I am your host, Eddie Barnwell, and this is my lovely guest, Shawnte. Shawnte, how you doing tonight?
I'm very good, thank you.
Awesome. So, as you know, this is a recovery podcast, and there's all forms of recovery. You know, you don't have to be addicted to drugs or alcohol or anything like that to be addicted to something. Today, we're going to speak on something that I know all too well. And that's gambling.
Mm-hmm.
Gambling is a huge issue, especially like in Michigan because we have a ton of casinos. Would you like to explain what you did for a living?
Yep, so I worked for some major casinos in the area for about 15, 16 years as a casino host or a sales executive in those buildings. And I helped manage large accounts and small accounts to grow business.
That sounds pretty cool. Do you want to walk us through what a typical day looked like for you at work? Like, I know you worked with high-end players and stuff like that.
So what a high-end player is someone who spends a lot of time on our platforms or inside the casino, spending a lot of money, using a lot of our gaming outlets and posts to express themselves as far as like playing tables or playing slots, and my job was to make sure that they stayed there and to enjoy those things that we have available to them, but the purpose was to make sure that they stayed and played.
Sure. How'd you get into this, like into the casino industry? What initially drew you to that line of work?
So I've always been in the customer service industry from entertainment aspects, and being a casino host does have that aspect where you are managing accounts, you're hosting events and activities. It is a form of entertainment, and we wanted to look as though it is a safe form of entertainment, but you are spending your money, and the goal here is to make sure that you are spending your time at the facility or on the platform. So it's my job to make sure that you are doing that and being loyal to the company.
That's pretty cool. It's interesting for sure, you know. I've only been on one end of that, you know. It's kind of neat to hear what's like the culture like behind the scenes, working with VIP gamblers, stuff like that.
So it's a lot of like business management, making sure that the guests are aware of the amenities that we have available on the property, keeping them entertained and engaged with the items that we have in regards to promotions. The more you play, the more you get is a perception of what we like to present, as well as making sure that they feel as though that they're having exclusive experiences.
Yeah. And you're talking about like comps and stuff like that. Can you share like some insight into how comps and player loyalty programs are designed to keep people playing?
The simplest thing about it is that the goal is to keep playing, right? Our job is to make sure that you are staying and you're playing and that the money doesn't leave the facility.
Almost like to make us feel like we're winning even when we lose.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean that you're getting something for your time spent with us.
Sure, yeah. Now, was gambling something that you ever got into?
So being at a place where you're seeing a lot of people win or the perception of winning, it is enticing to participate as well because you're seeing all these people come in and they put in a lot of money and they're getting out a lot of money. So it is very enticing, and I also played a lot too.
Did you? Would you say it had become a problem for you or not so bad?
Sometimes it did become a problem because I wanted to keep up the perception that I had things under control with my own finances, but seeing something that every day you're thinking like this is a possibility of happening, a big win or a big hit, you really think that, hey, that could possibly be me too. So I did find myself casually gaming for a while, and then it became to a point where I was gaming more than I should have, and there was a sinking feeling inside like, you know what, I've seen people experience these kinds of things where they did not have control, and I feel like I might be going on that path as well. But you tend to lie to yourself sometimes and say, hey, you know what, I do have it under control. I think I can get that next hit. I think I can make, that money back. But it's not always the case. And so it's not something that I deemed to at one time really have full control over because I thought I was going to get that next win or get that next hit. But then I also remember that I'm in that industry too. So, you have to step back and take a moment to see what exactly is important to you. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be entertainment. But many people, after a while, can see it as something that is an obligation to participate in their daily activity. for some form of comfort. It's supposed to be entertainment, but then if it becomes to the point where it's not entertaining anymore and it feels like it's a need to have to go, then that's where the spiral of desperation and spiral of feeling of addiction or gambling can come into play.
I was just going to say, you pretty much just described any addiction, right?
Okay.
Like it's the same with, drugs and alcohol, stuff like that. Like, I could speak on the gambling, unfortunately, too, because what I did was I got clean, and I was so used to toxic things in my life for so long that once I got clean, I felt like I needed to fill that void with something just as toxic, right? So
when you say toxic, explain a little bit what toxic behavior looked like to you.
To me, like something that will control your life and something that is not good for you, right? Something that's obviously bad that that you feel like until you realize that it's a problem is something that we're going to keep doing. And me, I was a toxic person for a long time. Like, I really was. So, like, I put down the drugs and alcohol, and I picked up gambling, and I was spending maybe more than I was on the drugs and alcohol.
In that transition, I'm sorry to interrupt, but in that transition of moving from one, let's say, enabling behavior to the next enabling behavior, was there something for you that triggered, like, hey, I need to, as you mentioned, fill that void for something that was a negative or a negative outlet, or something that was more of a pastime to fill that void of what you've already conquered?
I think like you said, at first it's unintentional. I just started going with actually my clean friends, my sober friends. We would go down to the casino, and it all started like with stupid slots and stuff like that. And then I found blackjack.
Okay.
And it got me high, just like any drug in the world would. I would sit there for days. Yes, and I'd seldomly leave. If I did, it would be for a couple hours, and then I would have to go back because I had to get that hit. And it's funny that you kept calling it a hit, right? Because in drug addiction, that's what we call that. I gotta get that first hit. I gotta get it. And it's the same thing with gambling. I was chasing something that was probably not going to happen. Just like when you're using drugs and alcohol, it's like that first hit was always your favorite, but then you're just chasing it the rest of the day, and it probably wasn't going to feel like that again.
When you were in that mode of moving from, and it's very interesting to me because as I'm learning more about what addiction looks like in other realms, speaking to someone who's been into those other realms as well, and then going into what we would consider to be an entertainment form, but now turns into an addiction. Yeah. Was there a turning point for you, as there was a turning point for me in regards to seeing how it started to affect you negatively?
Oh, of course. I was worried. Well, it got very negative because I was, again, I was doing all this clean with years of sobriety. I would go to the casino, and well, at the time I wasn't working in recovery. I was working as a union construction worker, and I would work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day at the minimum, and I was making very large checks, somewhere up to almost probably $3,000 a week, and I would go play it on one hand of blackjack, entire check.
Oh yeah.
So if I won, that was great, and I'd stay there for a couple more hours and inevitably lose that too. But if I lost, I'd want to go home and blow my brains out.
Ooh.
So it was and I did this all the time. There was I couldn't wait. And even if I was going to chill out on the casinos, now I found the apps. Oh my God. I didn't have to leave. I could go blow all my money right from my couch or right from where I was at work. I was doing that all the time.
Right?
All the time. It was, and I was working in other recovery places, other facilities, and I was teaching groups to people about living right and living a clean life when I was living very dirty just without drugs and alcohol.
And that can definitely happen when you work in the industry as well, but it's also a catalyst for you to see what the pros and the cons are from this kind of behavior and going down that spiral. I witnessed a lot of people who came in for entertainment, as I'm sure you did at first, but there may have been a trigger, or there may have been a sign where they saw somebody else winning or somebody losing, and they're like, okay, well, that person lost, but it won't be me. That sense of denial
Or you watch somebody lose on a machine long enough to you're like, that's gotta hit.
Okay.
That's gotta hit now,
Yeah.
right? And then you go and lose all your money too. And like, it's just the whole thing. And sometimes you'd hit, right? But you gotta get that hit to want something, right? To keep coming.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Like for me and the things that I saw in that industry, it made me want to actually start looking at the other side of the industry where it's like responsible gaming, and that is one thing that these gaming houses are now pushing to be in accordance with a lot of things that the state is asking them to do.
Sure.
So seeing people go into that spiral of this started off as fun or it's replacing an addiction to now they have a problem, they're losing their houses. I'm sure you've heard stories of that.
Oh, of course.
Losing their houses or losing their employment
And stuff like that. Like, it's crazy.
Very much so.
But I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
Because when you lose everything, it's like, oh my God, now how do I tell people that I don't have a penny? Because I just spent, and I made a lot of money at the time. And how do I explain that I'm broke when I just got a paycheck a couple hours ago? And, it was the same thing as using drugs. I mean, it's just different strokes for different folks, right? And like I said, my eyes would even pin up at that blackjack table. I was so, euphoric and, it was just, oh man.
It's something called chasing losses is what we would call it. Chasing losses and then saying, hey, well, I'll get paid this next check.
That's it.
And then I can come back and I can get it back again.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, I can go fill out a loan and that'll be helpful for me because now I
payday loans. I was awful
with
that. Yeah.
Are you? Yeah.
Oh my
payday
God.
loans, asking for, favors or money. And as you mentioned, in accordance to other addictions, what started off as something, say for example, alcohol was something fun. I'm just drinking, with friends and family. To I'm going to the casino with friends and family. We're gonna have dinner. We're gonna have lunch. I have comps, right?
Sure.
Because now I'm playing so much, I'm getting the attention of the casino, and they want to maintain that standard of play. So they're giving me things in order to do so. But now I have to keep up that image. I have to keep up that I'm going back to, redeem my comps, or they're giving me something to come back and play.
Sure.
Those are one of my favorite things is working the promotions and, as part of the aspect of being in the casino life, the glitz and the glamour, hosting the events and activities, something I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But then you also see the side of where that one ticket for you to go to an event or activity costs you how much in reality?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, you're basically losing to win.
You're
ultimately.
losing to win.
Yeah.
That's a phrase that unfortunately does apply, right?
Yeah.
I'm losing to win. But what are you actually winning? Because once that concert or event or activity is over, then you are still stuck with what? Your loss, right?
That's it.
You're still chasing after
It's cool getting a free hotel room,
It's
but
not free.
it's not free.
It's not free.
I was at the end of my gambling problem deal. I was probably spending upwards to $150 a year between the apps and the casino, and ultimately, what I had to do, the only way I would stop, it wasn't because I was super strong. I'm I'm not going to gamble anymore. I went down to the gaming board downtown, and I had myself banned for life.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. That's one of the things that in the gaming house that we see that some people might say that's not the way we want this transaction to happen, or we don't want this relationship to go that way. But being a responsible person who works in the gaming industry, that's something that we strive to make sure that we are maintaining for a person to get the help that they need.
It's a whole process.
It's a whole process.
Yeah.
I would love to hear about your experience with that, because I don't have that step by step of how that results in a person who's actually completed that process.
Oh, yeah.
I help initiate those things, and as somebody who worked in the gaming industry, was responsible for helping people gain these beautiful things that they saw, but also I have to maintain some integrity too, right? Of making sure that the people who don't have the capabilities to maintain it as entertainment.
Right.
So there's the cons of being in that position of seeing people spiral out, and then being somebody who has empathy, compassion, and has their own relationship with gaming and that experience of, hey, this might not be good for me, and having to pull herself out.
Sure.
But I was different. I had the tools, I had the knowledge of what that looks like because I worked in the industry.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that.
Right.
So when did you discover that you felt as though that there was a time in which you had to stop?
I mean, realistically, it was like an everyday thing, right? And just I had people calling me out because just like when I was using drugs, I started borrowing money off people. Like, it was like a whole thing. And it was embarrassing, right? I really made a fool out of myself. And there was nights I was up thousands, and then by the time I left, I didn't have a penny to my name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's within a matter of hours because I couldn't just gamble like even $100 a hand. I had to bet $1,000 a hand if I had
Why
it.
did you feel that way?
Right. And why did I feel that way? Because I'm an addict, right? And through and through. I've never done nothing a little bit.
Okay.
That's always been
There's
my
like
problem.
an extreme behavior.
Sure,
one
like
way or the other,
like
right?
even with like drinking and drugging, when you start, like sure it starts off as like a kind of a fun deal, right?
So when you decided to take those steps to go and self-ban,
Mm-hmm.
what was that process like for you? Did you wake up one day and say, hey, this is something that I don't want to do anymore? Or was it a catalyst in which an action happened?
People started calling me out on it, right? And again, I was in recovery. I was working in
You
recovery.
worked in recovery.
I was teaching groups and classes every day about living a good, healthy life. When in all actuality, all I was doing was not using.
Mm-hmm.
I was still living very dirty, Every penny I went to something destructive,
Mm-hmm.
And it may not have been drugs and alcohol, and great, but I might as well have done drugs and alcohol because I was still ruining my life. And after so many people had called me out, like you can't help but like take a look at yourself.
They were calling you out in regards to gambling?
Gambling, borrowing money, just looking dumb, especially when I was in a position where I was supposed to be some kind of like mentor or like, you know what I mean? And I just wasn't living that way.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how good I could talk, actions speak a lot louder than words in this world, So, after a while, I was tired. And like I said, I started to feel how I felt when I was hopeless in drug addiction.
You use that word hopeless. That's a very good point. When people feel as though they're out of control when it comes to like, and that's the thing I think in regards to gaming, when you are taking those steps to notice that there is something going on,
Mm-hmm.
that you felt as though that you have control, right? You entered that building, you logged on, right?
Right, yeah.
You have that control.
Yeah.
You're able to hit the buttons to make the slot machine go. You know what cards you're going to put down, right?
Yep.
You may not have control of the outcome, but you had control of going into the building to participate in the activity.
And it got to the point where, like, I knew all the people working at the pizza place and the security guards.
We're very friendly. We're very friendly. And it's supposed to be an entertainment thing for you. It's not supposed to be something that you're doing on a consistent basis. And you see those big spenders, right?
Mm-hmm.
But big spenders also have a lot of money to spend.
Sure.
So some of them don't feel the same impact that you may feel
Right.
when you have that check to check.
Right.
But those things get blurred. And I see you got something blurred in here. Those things do get blurred because you're looking at someone who may be successful in their play, but you also have maybe $100, $200, $300 more to spend,
Sure.
and maybe that might be you.
Yeah.
But you don't know that person's background.
Sure.
That person might have a shipyard. They might have, they might own thousands of dollars in a $1 million company.
Yeah.
And they might not be dressed to the nines, but they are spending a lot of money. And you're like, that could be me if I just get one or two more hits.
I've sat at tables with athletes.
Yes,
with people like, you're right.
Yeah.
And like once I started, once I started going there with my full check, I wasn't going to the normal tables. I was going to the back room and it was dumb. Even when I didn't do it, even when I went to the normal tables, I was playing like I was in the back room. Like I wasn't,
And that's when that moment of losing self-control happens, because now you don't feel as though that you have control of what you're doing now, right?
Sure,
You feel as though that, hey, if I don't do this, I'll never know.
Right.
And that happens a lot when it comes to the fantasy of big wins.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who have big wins, but the percentage that have the big wins, they're also big losers.
Sure.
Because how much they spend in order to win.
It's crazy. And like blackjack's a 50-50 type deal for the most part, right?
Okay.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta know how to play it. But winning or losing is pretty much luck, all right? Like you can't know what unless you're card counter, and I wasn't that quick. So like, unless you knew how to do these things, like it was per chance, right? And like, you tend to lose just, if you have one great night and you win all night, you're going to go back the next day thinking you're going to have that same night, and it's just not that.
But how often do you hear about the stories of people going in and just having that one great night right off the rip? No, they've gone in and tried a couple times before they had that
I do
one
believe
night.
there's something to that beginner's luck too, though, because like some people, like you get, sucked right in, and I've had that happen too. But like it doesn't compare to the loss that I felt there,
and when you say the feeling,
Mhm.
that's the psychological aspect of when you no longer see things as entertainment and they
Sure.
now need to be a necessity.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit to me about what that felt like when was there an overwhelming sensation of guilt, loss? Is it something similar to other addictions?
It's the same. It's the exact same. Like I mean, like I said, it got me high to gamble. Like to play big hands would make me feel high, and I was clean. Like that's the craziest part. I'd stay till all hours of the night, and sometimes I wouldn't even leave. But like,
I've seen that plenty
yeah,
of times.
yeah, and it's just like you get there, and with the sense of loss, it is overwhelming. Like you hate yourself. You literally are embarrassed to go home and like to tell your daughter, no, you can't go do this because I don't have money. Dad, you just got paid yesterday. What are you doing with it? And then everybody starts thinking you're on drugs again. There's all kinds of rumors of why I'm living the way I'm living. It's like it's a vicious cycle. And there's really no good ending to it. Like when you're that far into it, there's no good ending. You're either gonna, it's the same thing, they say in my program, you end up in jail's institution or death. In gambling, I think you either quit or you die. You die doing it. A lot of people end their lives over, something that we thought was fun at first. And it just, like any other addiction, it becomes not fun.
So you mentioned the phrase addiction and that you went and you banned yourself out of the systems, out of the gaming. So what does that what does that process look like? As somebody who worked in the gaming industry, we would try to identify those people who had problems and who had issues, even when ourselves had issues at times, right? But once again, we had the knowledge of what that process is supposed to look like, with the things that we would look for in somebody: not going home, asking for favors, asking for additional comps or benefits that they may not qualify for, things in which they feel like they were entitled to.
There's maxing out cards, doing all
there's a sense of entitlement that comes with the progression of you going into a downward spiral.
Right.
I gave you all my money, or I did this, or I played, I stayed. Give me comp, give me food, give me events, give me activities. There's a sense of entitlement.
Oh yeah.
We did not ask you to participate in this activity. This is a free will. So when you decided that this is no longer a free will activity for me, and there's something that I need to address, and there's something that I need to do in order to help and better my own situation, what does that process, or how did that conclusion come to you, and what did that process look like for you?
Well, I knew I had to stop. I had no choice towards the end of my having fun. That was never fun. I went down to the gaming board downtown. It's this huge building, and like the gaming board is in like a little room in this huge building. And I went in and I told the lady, it was just like I was checking into rehab. Like I was so broken, I was like I was just done. I was
kind of like a flashback to that.
Literally, like I was broken. I was in like tears. It was horrible. And I went up to the people and I said, "Look, I got a gambling problem and I need to stop. Right? I need your guys' help."
Did you wake up that day and say, "Hey, this is what I need to do," or was there?
Not really. I'll be totally transparent about it. I was dating somebody at the time, for a long time, and that person was not gonna be around me anymore if she knew that I continued to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a catalyst there in which made you stop.
There was. And it was something I knew I needed to do because I just wanted to not be a bum my whole life. And, I especially in recovery, like, I got so used to living so scummy for so long that once I got clean and I started getting some stuff and, like, some things started happening for me, I wanted to maintain a lifestyle, and I just wasn't doing that gambling, right? Like, that's a dumb way to go out.
I love that you stated that there was a lifestyle that you wanted to lead.
100%. I still do. I mean, like, I'm guilty of that, right? I believe with recovery, you get a lot of things. and most of it is a life worth living and all the other stuff. But like when you're doing well and you clean your act up and you're doing good things, like good things happen and you acquire things, right? And like I don't want to give that away today. You know, not to any
That's a
organization.
very powerful
or something.
statement, that I don't want to give that away today. That I don't want to let something that once was fun for me and now is not fun for me and is affecting my life on a daily basis.
Sure.
Is something that has control.
Yeah.
I don't want it to affect my life that way.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's what we do as addicts. We give things away. Like, if I were to go get high today, I'd be giving away my recovery. I'd be giving away my clean date, right? I'd be giving away all these things that are very important to me. And I'm not willing to do that today. The same as, you know, the money I work hard for. I'm constantly working, whether it be here at Live Right or other places. I do a lot of stuff, right? So I'm constantly working. And I'm not willing to just give that away today. Like, it's, you know, I work really hard for it.
So you mentioned that you went down there and you told them that you had a problem because you recognized those things before you went down there, or was it something that you recognized after you started this process of self?
No, I mean, they don't really, like, they don't give you, like, a counselor or anything. Like, it's, you go down there, but it is a process. So you go down there, you got to fill out an hour's worth of paperwork. They put you on camera. We're sitting at a table just like this. And they put you on camera, and you got to look into the camera, and they ask you if anybody's coercing you to do this. And you say no, obviously. Like, and they, you know, they ask you a ton of questions. So you got to answer looking right into the camera. You got to answer honestly, and then they have you sign all these papers again on camera. So like, there's no mistaking. Now, at the end of the process, they give you this huge book, and you leave, and you're done. So my social security number won't work in the apps. Unfortunately, the only thing is like the app ban, or like to bar yourself from the apps, it's only a 5-year thing. The casinos in Michigan, I cannot enter for life. That's a life ban that I had put. Why the apps are only 5 years is beyond me, because that's more dangerous to me, because I can just sit at home. But
well, as apps and things are growing, and as those companies online are growing, the states and the cities that they are in, the counties that they're in, they're always creating and developing some form of safeguards or bans on certain things and activities. So I feel like maybe in the future those things will grow.
I agree.
As we go into new age of AI and technology. For example, you mentioned that you were doing all these things on camera, and that's one of the things, you know, you have to do in order so that when you do come into a casino and someone sees you and you're on that list, it's because we can see you. You were on camera.
Well, truth be told, is even barred, you could probably, especially if the security knows you and they don't know your band, you can walk right in.
But there's a thing. The thing about that is that that's not only something that's a safeguard for you, but it's also a safeguard for their employment. They want to make sure that they catch
100%.
you.
If for some reason they ask you for your ID while you're there, and you're barred, they will call the police.
Yes.
And you will be arrested. So like if I was caught on the gaming floor at the casino, I could be arrested for that right now.
Definitely.
So I choose not to do that anymore and be arrested anymore.
Yes.
So like I'm good on all that. So like it keeps me accountable, right? Do I feel like I could probably get on the floor? Sure.
Let's not air that part.
No, I mean, but it is what it is. I mean, I could go get irate now if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that because I can play the tape forward. There's a lot to that, right? So like I think it keeps me accountable is what that does, right? And the fact that I'm even on some kind of paper saying that I can't do it reminds me that there's a problem that was there. Even when I start glorifying and glamorizing the idea of going to a casino, you know, I could play the tape forward just like with any addiction, right? And remember where I was at the very end of all that.
And I think that's very important to recognize in yourself, even when it comes to many addictions, that there has to be a point in which your self-worth and your understanding of when fun stops, you have to stop.
Sure.
Because I feel like if you don't have that inside you and others are not assisting you with that, you have to be able to know that there are programs like Live Right, there are programs like Gamblers Anonymous, and
we have a great gambling Gamblers Anonymous here program at
Yeah.
Live Right. We have like the top gambling therapist in the country.
That's awesome.
Or in the state, anyway. But whatever. He's
Yeah.
really good.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. He's really good.
That's responsible gaming tools, even on the sites that you might have visited and you feel like you don't have control. These companies are responsible to put those things out there to aid in helping those who don't have the feeling that they have support.
Sure.
But Live Right is a place that physically you can go to and get that support from.
Yep.
There are things online that you can get that support from. But please know that people are listening to you.
Sure.
When it's not fun anymore, it's time to do something about it.
Mhm.
When it wasn't fun for me and I was like, hey, this isn't cool anymore, I had the tools available to me because I worked in the industry to say, hey, you know what? I'd rather take this money and spend it on my kid or vacation versus to continue to play when it's not fun for me anymore. It got to a point
Well,
where...
that's one of the things
Yeah.
I was going to ask you. How did you go about it? Like, did you seek some kind of help, or like, was there a support system or a program that played a role in you moving forward out of that?
I had the tingling feeling early on, like,
Sure.
hey, unlike some people who are not in the gaming industry, they
Mhm.
don't see all the pros and the cons of, of getting a help. So early on, I was able to say, this does not feel good.
Yeah,
This is,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, well, after work, I'll go play for a couple hours.
Mhm.
It was like, this couple hours keeps turning into a little bit longer period, right?
Yeah.
But you get that innate feeling like, this isn't becoming fun for me anymore. It seems like it's another part-time job. That's what I've heard from other people as well.
Sure.
And so I was like, let me find another way in order to utilize the free time that I had,
Mhm.
right? But not everybody has that notion or has that concept of what that feels like. And being a person who likes to help and being an empath and wanting to help others, seeing other people fall down into a spiral, I didn't want to be in that same condition in which I thought that I might need additional support or help. So I started finding other ways to occupy my time, which was, for me, my catalyst is helping other people.
Sure.
I like helping other people, so I started filling my time up with those volunteer opportunities to help, whether it be in a soup kitchen or helping somebody with some public relations or helping, around, different activities.
Sure.
But also realizing for myself, as well as watching other people who are in the other side of recovery, as you mentioned, what's important to you? And I think that's one of the things that I want to leave today with people is figuring out what's important. If it's not entertaining anymore, then that's not important. It should be something that, you find that brings you joy and happiness, so fill that time. Gaming is a part of entertainment, but there's also other forms of entertainment to do. You can find activities that fill your heart and your soul and don't empty your pocket.
Sure. What was the hardest part about being surrounded, like, in your industry, you're surrounded by gambling and you're trying not to gamble? Like, how did that work out for you?
Well, for me, I think once again it was more of just finding opportunities to separate myself from what work was versus fun for me.
Sure.
When you go into the casino and you're spending time with your friends, as you mentioned before, and you guys are having entertainment, but then you're going back to the ATM machine and you're like, okay, just $50 more, $100 more,
Sure.
because I want to keep up with the fun.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't turn into fun anymore because you're leaving with nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so you see those people who go in and they have a great time, but then they leave with nothing. You never know otherwise, right? Because you're not gonna have a breakdown. Well, some people do. You're not gonna have a breakdown in the casino about your life choices.
Right.
But it's afterwards.
It's when you get
yeah,
home and
it's
the
afterwards
doors are closed.
and the
right?
doors are closed. Or maybe you're calling the casino to ask for a favor again, and then we start seeing those things as well.
Sure.
So for me, it was more of like, this isn't fun anymore, and I want to do something that brings me joy and fills my heart and not a loss to my pocket.
Sure.
So when it's not fun anymore for me, not only did I have the wherewithal, and a lot of people don't, that's why I'm here today to, educate people on getting those services and getting that extra help of what that looks like. So listening to your story about getting, that self-ban was very informative to me, because I see, how the process starts. We acknowledge that you have a problem. We might come up to you and say, hey, these are some of the things that we have available to you. But seeing and hearing about what your side of it looks like was very informative to me, so that I now have an understanding of what that looks like afterwards.
It got very dark. Like,
did it?
You're very strong in the aspect of, like, when you say it got no fun and I stopped.
It got no fun.
For me, when I realized
that's not proper English, but it
Whatever.
did not get fun for me at all. And I felt as though that, like, the money that I was spending on trying to chase something that I thought was a fun activity for a while, those were plane tickets. That was a trip to Disney World.
For sure.
So, like as you mentioned, like for your daughter, like you want her to be able to have the things that you want.
Yeah.
Thinking of the bigger picture.
Right.
Because if it's not the glitz and glamour, if it's not entertainment anymore, then what is it? You know,
right.
it's not something that's benefiting you, and sustaining what you would like as a quality of life.
For me, though, like once I realized that it was no longer fun, I was stuck. And that's been my MO throughout my life. Like, just socially using and drinking and stuff like that. In my head from a child, it was fun. I was doing this stuff. I was younger than my daughter is now when I started using hard drugs. And of course at first it was like, you're the life of the party. Everybody wants to hang out. And then it got real dark and nobody wants to be around you and your family cuts you off and like all these things happen. You lose everything. And no matter how great your life is, you will absolutely burn down everything you care about. And like, that's scary. And the fact that you could do that, and I've learned the hard way that you could do that without drugs or alcohol. You could do that clean, right? Is scary. There's a lot of people that have never touched a drug in their life that go to these casinos and they they burn down everything they love. They lose their families over it. They lose everything. It's a business of losing.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? It really is. Like, you might have a couple great nights there, and that's fun, and that's cool, and when you do win, it's great. But then, I don't know, like, I'm not somebody that can put anything down. If something makes me feel good, I'm going to do it all the time. That's maybe why I'm so strong in my recovery, because it makes me feel good. And I found a healthier outlet, something else to be addicted to. Right?
And something that makes you feel good in the long run, not just in the short term, right?
Sure.
So like you mentioned earlier that you felt as though there was a high or a hit.
Mm-hmm.
So finding something that makes you feel happy and excited for an extended period of time, not just for the moment that you're in it, I think is extremely important.
It is, but like when you're in that mode and you're just chasing those highs and those hits, you're not thinking about bigger picture stuff. Today I can because I have clarity. And because, like, I've been through all the crap that I don't ever want to do again. Like, so, like, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that has to bump his head and learn, Nobody can tell me, don't do that. Because when you tell me don't do that, 9 times out of 10, I want to try it. I've always been like that my whole life. And even today, like with lesser things, I don't take, suggestions hard to take. And in my program, that's something we have to learn to do is shut up and take suggestions, like
take suggestions.
Literally, close your mouth and open your ears, they say around there. But that saved my life, learning to do that.
Now, that's something you feel as though you couldn't do on your own. You needed outside help.
Yeah, yeah. I need my program even today. Like I don't care if I have 20 years clean. I'll always go to my program. I will always go to meetings. I share about it all the time at tables. I feel like that if you have cancer, you're going to take your medicine. If you have a cold, you're going to take your cold medicine. Those tables are my medicine today. And I know I take it every single day. I don't really miss days unless I absolutely have to. But I don't miss those days now because I see what happens when I stop. I learned, the old saying, F around and find out. I did that, and I found out real quick what happens when I stop doing the things that work for me. So today it's very important to me that I continue taking that medicine on a daily, my home group's called daily maintenance, so there's no pun intended by that. That's exactly what you need. And I'm not saying it's the same for people who gamble and stuff like that, I don't know. Because I have, there's Gamblers Anonymous. I use my program's 12 steps on my gambling problem. You know what I mean? I try to lump it all into one thing. Because my program looks at any addiction like it's something to talk about there.
So I feel as though that what you're stating to me in regards to your own story is that, you have an addictive personality and you have to have something that feeds that need for excitement or
I don't really get excitement out of it anymore, out of the meetings and stuff. What I get is peace of mind, and it's kind of like my again, it's just, daily maintenance, especially with drug addiction, right? I was a terrible drug addict. And today, I just know what works. I can only speak on that. You know what I mean? Maybe other stuff works too. I can't speak on that because I don't know it. What I do know is that my program works very well. As long as you work that program. You can't just show up to meetings and be healed, so to speak, right? You got to do work. You got to work steps. You got to do all kinds of things. I'm in a men's group. I work steps. I'm constantly doing service. I'm on the board of directors at my alcohol club. I work in recovery. Like, my whole life is recovery based now, for the most part. That being said, like, recovery has also given me a really cool life where I can go enjoy normal things now and be normal doing it. I was never content in life. Today I'm content. I was never really happy. Today I'm super happy. Like, I couldn't look in the mirror when I was doing those things. Today I like what I see.
Awesome.
And I owe that to my program. So, it'd be a real dumb thing for me to turn my back on the only thing that works for me. And in our program they say that you can only keep what you have by giving it away. So that's why I do a lot of service. That's why I work with a lot of new kids that just come into the program and stuff. Because I just want to give back what somebody did for me. Because I know it helps and I know it works. And there's a lot of people I'll never forget. If I'd never seen them again, I would never forget them because they saved my life. And if I could do that for somebody, that'd be huge.
That's a beautiful testimony. Very much so, a beautiful testimony. And thinking like, coming over the addiction of gambling when you substitute it for something else is a big demonstration of survival, but also somebody who wants to succeed.
Yeah, I was just tired of living dirty. Even clean. I was tired of living dirty. I was tired of feeling bad about myself. I was tired of being not the parent that I should have been, for a long time. Today I can say I'm a good dad. My daughter would tell you, my dad's awesome. But I was a piece of crap dad for most of her life. And that sucks. That's a hard pill to swallow. And I wish I could have given her what I have now then. But that's just not reality for me, and all I can do now is make now good and make the future bright.
Right. Yeah.
So like that's what we do, and that's what recovery is all about.
And I think like working in the gaming industry and seeing those people who are able to maintain it as fun and those that are not, and understanding that there is a difference. There is a difference with behavior.
Yep.
There is a difference in those who need additional help and support. Really stuck with me, and it's something that I really have a passion for helping others. Like, once again, awesome. That's what it was when I started in the gaming industry, right? Yeah. I love helping people. I love entertaining people. But then also seeing, this person may have a problem. This person may need some additional help and support. So that really led me into the realm of which I wanted to start speaking to people about, like, what is it like when you don't have control anymore, and you feel as though that you might need additional help. And seeing and witnessing the things that happen at Live Right for those people who are taking those steps to make their life better is extremely inspiring to me.
Nice.
And I've seen the praises of this program and to this podcast for those who are seeking to make their life better. And you've had so many great catchphrases today in regards to what that looks like and how notifying others that you are trying to better yourself, as well as notifying your internal self of trying to be a better person. How that looks like on the other side.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful to be a part of this podcast today. And
I'm grateful that you came out.
Talk to people in regards to what that looks like when you no longer are having fun and you're no longer able to dissect between what is reality of actually winning and not having control of what is necessity for your day-to-day life. Money is a big factor in your day-to-day life, right? You need to have money in order to survive, and if you're just giving that away and it's not entertainment for you anymore, it's not funny for you anymore, this is now going to impact your life in various ways.
Yeah. I feel rich in a lot of ways. Money's not one of them, by the way, because you don't make much working in recovery. But I'm rich in the fact that I get to help people today, and whether it be one of the youth group kids or one of just a normal adult or a friend. Helping friends and family is probably the coolest part about it, and the kids, really, that's my favorite part here at Live Right, is working for the youth empowerment program and being able to reach them so they could hit, if any bottom, a high bottom, and not do what we did, right? They say, again, you end up in jails, institutions, or death in this world that I'm used to. And I've been everywhere but, dead. And I've even been there, but just they were able to bring me back.
Oh.
Luckily.
Yeah, luckily.
And
I've seen all of those things happen as well.
Sure.
Where people don't have control and they take the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah.
Or escape, if it's the way you want to put it.
Yeah.
But that feeling of hopelessness, not having things under control, not being able to control what your actions are, is a definite feeling.
Sure.
And just recognizing that there are resources for you.
Yep.
Whether you are vocalizing them to somebody you know, or doing it anonymously, or doing it as you did, where you took that step to go down to the office and say, hey, I need to stop. I recognize a behavior in me that's not good, and I know it's going to impact the rest of my life if I don't do something about it.
Right, and that's a drastic move to go down there and do all that and put yourself on a life ban list from places that normal people go all the time. But I'm not normal when it comes to being an addict. Like I said earlier, I don't do anything a little bit, and I will burn down everything I love.
We don't want that to happen.
No.
And metaphorically,
and it happens quick.
It
happens quick. So I'm grateful for the gaming board. If you're struggling with addiction, go down to the gaming board, put yourself on the list. Doesn't take that long. And so I got one more question for you before we go. For anybody that's listening to this and feels like they're stuck in a similar cycle, what would you want them to take away from, your situation or what we've talked about today? Do me a favor, look right in this camera here and tell them right to their face, what do you think they should take away from all
When
this?
it's no longer fun, step away. When you feel as though that there is something that is taking control over you and you don't have control, it's best to start looking at options and resources that are here that not only the state provides for you, but your nonprofits provide for you. And understanding that there is someone who's here to help. There is an outlet for you to get that help and support, so that, as you mentioned, that there is another way of life that will give you quality and make sure that you have the things that you need in order to succeed for the remainder of your days.
Yeah.
A quick hit is not always the last hit.
That's right.
Okay?
Unfortunately, for me, there would have never been a last hit unless you find a way out. And luckily I have my program when it comes to substance. I had the gaming board and their help when it came to addiction. Not to mention, I'm friendly with addiction counselors who deal with substance and gambling. And, just support from my peers and other like-minded people who've been through it. That's everything. Thank you so much for coming out. I loved this interview. You're great. I wish I could have you on with me every week. You're an awesome co-host. You're hardly a guest. She's the co-host.
I'm willing to go back. I enjoyed myself.
It was awesome. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you coming and telling, your side of things from something that, people only see the lights and all that stuff. So it's kind of cool to get a background look at that situation and to hear your side of it or what you witnessed as far as the addiction end of it. I, again, am your host, Eddie Barnwell. Thank you so much for watching Live Rite Tonight. For all of July and August, we have an amazing schedule for the podcast. Stay tuned. Next week, we have a very special guest. I know we were on a little hiatus there for a moment, but this time of year we have a lot of events here at Live Rite, and we've been very busy. But I promise, from here through August, we are going to have an amazing show for you. Stay tuned. Check us out. We're going to put the number up for the gambling hotline. We're going to put up our schedule for Live Rite for the month. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching the show tonight. Have a great night. Thanks.